Welcome to Unit 3, Parallel and Perpendicular Lines. We're going to get started today with talking about lines and angles. Lines intersect each other, of course, and create some particularly unique angles. For this chapter, we're going to get some help from Mr. Sullivan at Kaiserslautern High School in Germany. Without any further ado, Mr. Sullivan, take it away.
But I'm back, baby. So first thing we're going to do, we got some definitions. You know how those work. Write these down while we talk about it. You probably want to pause the video after you've written them down so that we can actually talk about it a little bit, all right? First one is parallel lines, and those are lines that are coplanar lines that do not intersect. So coplanar, remember, it means they have to be in the same plane. If they're not in the same plane, they technically cannot be parallel lines. Now that's tricky because if we have a figure over here, we have this cube, right? We have this line here, AD. Okay, now AD would appear to be in the same plane as BC, which it is. And since they're coplanar and that they never intersect, they are in fact parallel. And if you notice, we mark parallel lines with these arrowheads. So AE is also parallel to BF. And since those are parallel to each other, we mark them with one arrowhead. Up here we marked AD and BC with two. That way we can distinguish between the fact that they're different. All right, they're not parallel to each other. AE is not parallel to AD. Okay. Let's see. AD does not touch BF. AD does not intersect BF. Right? However, they're not in the same plane. Okay? Remember, a plane is like a piece of paper. So this piece of paper is not the same piece of paper as this one. They're not in the same plane. Sure, one point is, but not all the points of that line are. So therefore, we can't talk about those as being parallel. Well, those are called skew lines. And those are non-coplanar lines. They're not parallel and they do not intersect. So since they are not in the same plane and they don't intersect at all, then they're skew. Now take a look at this, AD and AE. Again, they're not in the same plane. They share a point though, don't they? One point is in common, so they're not skew, okay? And then the last one is parallel planes. And parallel planes are planes that do not intersect. So if you have this plane down here, EFGH, it's parallel to ABCD. They do not intersect, all right? You could also see this plane at the front of the cube, right? And we'll talk a little bit more. Let's get a little bit better picture of that. Here's a Rubik's Cube, right? This front, this red face is a plane, and the top is a plane, and this side's a plane, okay? Now if I take this right here, okay, let's even draw that. If I take this line, and right? And this is also in the same plane. Bad drawing, Mr. Sullivan. They don't intersect, therefore they would be parallel. Okay? However, if I took this line here, boom, and this line here, now you can see this green line here is in the yellow plane. Alright, it could also be on that backside plane, but is it in the blue plane? No. Or the red plane? No. Therefore, those are skew lines, okay? They're never going to touch. They're not parallel because they're not in the same plane, okay? Look at this one. If I drew this one in with this one, they're parallel. We would draw an arrow on there to label that we know that they are parallel, okay? There's no markings for skew lines, but they have that one for parallel lines.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan, for that wonderful introduction to skew and parallel lines and planes. Let's look at a few examples. So let's begin by looking at segments that are parallel to segment AB. And segment AB is the segment on the upper left-hand edge of our box here. So segment AB is going to be parallel to which other segments? Let's see, segment CD seems to fit that bill, doesn't it? So these two lines are parallel. So remember our parallel symbol looks like an arrowhead? But wait, that's not all. There are actually three segments in this figure parallel to AB. And we can label all of them with the same amount of arrowheads because they're all parallel to segment AB. Okay, which segments are skew to segment CD? Well, skew lines are lines that do not intersect and are not coplanar. Let's see, line EH does not intersect line CD, or segment CD, and it is not coplanar. Segment EH is skew to segment CD. There's no symbol for skew, so I am just going to list the segments that are skewed to segment CD. Let's see, along with that, there's a line FG there at the back of our box there. And segment FG is not coplanar to segment CD, and it does not intersect it, so therefore it is skew. There are two vertical line segments. Now let's talk about parallel planes. Remember that parallel planes are planes that do not intersect. Think about a box. When we think of a box, we know that the top of the box and the bottom of the box do not intersect. And once again, we name planes using 3 points. So we can say that plane ABC is parallel to plane GHE. Remember, only 3 points are necessary to name a plane. Our question asks us to name 2 pairs. And finally, what are 2 segments parallel to plane BCG? First, we should identify plane BCG. What we need is 2 segments that do not intersect the back side of the box. So, parallel to plane BCG is segment AD, so that is one possibility. Also, segment DH. So now it's your turn.